Good morrow, scholars. Welcome back to the short second life of Bree Tanner. Again, I want to say brief instead of short. I don't know. I'm looking at myself on the webcam because it shows on the screen what is seen on the webcam. I look like I forget the actor's name, but he was just in the Hunger Games Part 1 and 2, I assume. I haven't seen the Part 1 of Mockingjay. He was Foggy Nelson in the Daredevil show on Netflix. I kind of look like him, only Mexican, and he's better looking. Oh, and he can grow facial hair. Anyway, that's not important right now. We are on page 84. Thank you for not remembering. Or did you remember? I don't even know. I'll go back and I'll check and see if anybody remembered. Anyway, the last paragraph. Let's see. I felt weird for staring. I glanced quickly around the room to see if anyone had noticed that Fred was normal and pretty for the moment. No one was looking our way. I stole a fast peek at Kevin, ready to shift my focus at once if he noticed, but his eyes were concentrated on some point to the left of where he stood. He was frowning slightly. Before I could look away, his gaze skipped right over to me and settled on my right side. His frown deepened, like, what the hey? Darn you, Java. Like he was trying to see me and couldn't. I felt the corners of my mouth twitch into not quite a grin. There was too much to worry about to really enjoy Kevin's blindness. I looked back at Fred, wondering if the gross-out factor would return, only to see that he was smiling with me. Smiling. He was really spectacular. I wish I had that. What? Then the moment was over, and Fred went back to his book. I didn't move for a while, waiting for something to happen, for Diego to come through the door, or Riley with Diego, or Raoul, or for the nausea to hit again, or for Kevin to glare in my direction, for the next fight to break out. Something? I feel like Fred's power would come in real handy during the fight. I think I know what I might do if I want to change the ending. Let's see, where was I? When nothing did, I eventually pulled myself together and did what I should have been doing, pretending nothing unusual was going on. I grabbed a book from the pile near Fred's feet, and then sat down right there and acted like I was reading. It was probably one of the same books I'd pretended to read yesterday, but it didn't look familiar. I flipped through the pages again, taking nothing in. Wait. I flipped through the pages, again taking nothing in. There we go. My mind was racing around in tight little circles. Where was Diego? How had Riley reacted to his story? What had it all meant? The talk before the cloaks, the talk after the cloaks. I worked through it, going backward, trying to assemble the pieces into a recognizable picture. The vampire world had some kind of police, and they were darn scary. This wild group of months-old vampires was supposed to be an army, and this army was somehow illegal. Our creator had an enemy, strike that 2 enemies. We were going to attack one of them in 5 days, or else the other ones, the scary cloaks, were going to attack her, or us, or both. We would be trained for this attack. As soon as Riley got back, I snuck a glance at the door, then forced my eyes back to the page in front of me, and then the stuff before the visitors. What? She was worrying about some decision. She was pleased that she had so many vampires, so many soldiers. Riley was happy that Diego and I had survived. He said he thought he'd lost 2 more to the sun, so that must mean he didn't know how vampires really reacted to sunlight. What she'd said was strange, though. She asked if he was sure. Sure Diego had survived, or sure that Diego's story was true. I didn't think about that. The last thought frightened me. Did she already know that the sun didn't hurt us? If she did know, then why had she lied to Riley and through him to us? Why would she want to keep us in the dark? Literally. Was it very important to her that we stay ignorant, important enough to get Diego in trouble? I was working myself into a real panic, frozen solid. If I could still sweat, I would have been sweating now. I had to refocus to turn the next page to keep my eyes down. Was Riley deceived, or was he in in on it too. When Riley said he thought we lost 2 more to the sun, did he mean the sun literally, or to the lie about the sun? If it was the second option, then to know the truth meant being lost. Panic scattered my thoughts. I tried to be rational and make sense of it. It was harder without Diego. Having someone to talk to interact with, sharpened my ability to concentrate. Without that, fears sucked at the edges of my thoughts, twisted with the always present thirst. The lure of blood was constantly close to the surface. Even now, decently well fed, I could feel the burn and the need. Think about her. Think about Riley, I told myself. I had to understand why they would lie. If they were lying, so that I could try to figure out what it would mean to them that Diego knew their secret. If they hadn't lied, if they just told us that if they just told us all that the day was as safe for us as the night, how would that change things? Okay, it makes sense in my head. It made sense when I say it, but I don't know. I'm stumbling. I imagined what it would be like if we didn't have to be contained in the blackened out basement all day, if the 21 of us, maybe fewer now, depending on how the hunting parties were getting along, were free to do what we wanted whenever we wanted to. We would want to hunt. That was a given. If we didn't come back, if we didn't have to hide, well, many of us wouldn't come back very regularly. It was hard to focus on the return while the thirst was in charge, but Riley had drilled so deeply into us that, into all of us, the threat of burning, of a return of that hideous pain we'd all experienced once. Sorry. That was the reason we could stop ourselves. Self-preservation, the only instinct stronger than thirst. So the threat kept us together. There were other hiding places, like Diego's cave, but who else thought about that kind of thing? We had a place to go, a base, so we went to it. Clear heads were not a vampire's specialty. Or at least they weren't the specialty of young vampires. Riley was clear-headed. Diego was more clear-headed than I was. Those cloaked vampires were terrifyingly focused. I shuddered. So the routine wouldn't control us forever. What would they do when we were older, clearer? It struck me that nobody was older than Riley. Everyone here was new. She needed a bunch of us now for this mystery enemy. But what about afterward? Oh. I had a strong feeling that I didn't want to be around for that part. And I suddenly realized something stupendously obvious. It was the solution that had tickled at the edges of my understanding before when I was tracking the vampire herd to this place with Diego. I didn't have to be around for that part. I didn't have to be around for one more night. If I was a statue again, as I thought over this stunning idea... What? If Diego and I hadn't known where the gang was most likely headed, would we ever have found them? Probably not, and that was a big group leaving a wide trail. What if it were a single vampire who could leap up onto the land, maybe into a tree, without leaving a trail at the edge of the water? Just one, or maybe 2 vampires who could swim out as far out to the sea as they wanted, who could then return to land anywhere. Canada, California, Chile, China. You would never be able to find those 2 vampires. They would be gone, disappeared like they'd gone up in smoke. I mean, hey, you never know. I would take Fred. I mean, I'd take Diego too, but, Fred. I like Fred. I like that. We didn't have to come back the other night. We shouldn't have. Why hadn't I thought of it then? But would Diego have agreed? I was abruptly not so sure of myself. Was Diego more loyal to Riley after all? Would he have felt it was his responsibility to stand by Riley? He'd known Riley for a lot longer. He'd really only known me a day. Was he closer to Riley than he was to me? I pondered that, frowning. I get the feeling Diego's already dead. And that worries me. I like him. I like that. Well, I would find out as soon as we had a minute alone, and then maybe if our secret club really meant something, it wouldn't matter what our creator had planned for us. We could disappear, and Riley would have to make do with 19 vampires, or make some new ones quick. Either way, not our problem. I couldn't wait to tell Diego my plan. My gut instinct was that he would feel the same, hopefully. Suddenly, I wondered if this was what had really happened to Shelley and Steve and the other kids who had disappeared. I knew they hadn't burned in the sun. Riley had only claimed he'd seen their ashes as another way to keep the rest of us afraid and dependent on him. What? Oh, wait, what? Had Riley only claimed he'd seen their ashes. Okay. Sorry. Returning home to him every dawn. Maybe Shelley and Steve had just set off on their own. No more Raoul, no enemies or armies threatening their immediate future. I kind of hope so. I want to know now. Maybe that's what Riley meant by lost to the sun. Oh, that makes sense, actually. Runaways, in which case, he'd be happy that Diego hadn't bailed, right? If only Diego and I had taken off, we could be free, like Shelley and Steve. No rules, no fear of the sunrise. Again, I imagine the whole horde of us on the loose, without a curfew. I could see Diego and me moving like ninjas through the shade, but I could also see Raoul, Kevin, and the rest sparkling disco ball monsters in the center of a busy downtown street, the bodies piling up, the screaming, the helicopters whirring, the soft, helpless cops with their dinky little bullets that wouldn't make a dent, the cameras, the panic that would spread so fast as the pictures bounced swiftly around the globe. Vampires wouldn't be a secret for very long. Even Raoul couldn't kill people fast enough to keep the story from spreading. There was a chain of logic here, and I tried to grasp it before I could be distracted again. 1. Humans didn't know about vampires. 2. Riley encouraged us to be inconspicuous, not to attract the notice of humans, and educate them otherwise. What? 3. Diego and I had decided that all vampires must be following that guideline, or else the world would know about us. 4. They must have a reason for doing so, and it wasn't the little pop guns of the human police that motivated them. Yeah, the reason must be pretty important to make all vampires hide all day long in stuffy basements. Maybe reason enough to make Riley and our creator lie to us, terrify us about the burning sun. Maybe it was a reason Riley would explain to Diego, and since it was so important, he would... since it was so important and he was so responsible, Diego would promise to keep the secret, and they would be cool with that. Sure they would. But what if what actually happened to Shelley and Steve was that they discovered the shiny skin thing and not run? What if they'd gone to Riley? And darn it, there went the next step in my logical path. The chain dissolved and I started panicking about Diego again. As I stressed, I realized I'd been thinking things through for a while. I could feel dawn coming on. No more than an hour away. So where was Diego? Where was Riley? As I thought this, the door opened and Raoul leapt down the stairs, laughing with his buddies. I hunched down, leaning closer to Fred. Raoul didn't notice us. He looked at the crispy fried vampire in the center of the floor and laughed harder. His eyes were brilliant red. On the nights Raoul went hunting, he never came home till he had to. He would keep feeding as long as he could, so dawn must have been even closer than I'd thought. Riley must have demanded that Diego prove his words. That was the only explanation, and then they were waiting for the dawn, only... That would mean Riley didn't know the truth. That our creator was lying to him, too. Or did it? My thoughts twisted up again. Christy showed up minutes later with 3 of her gang. She reacted indifferently to the pile of ashes. I did a quick head count as 2 more hunters hurried through the door. 20 vampires. Everyone was home except Diego and Riley. Wait a minute. Or is she counting the ashes? The sun would rise at, wait, what? 20 vampires. Everyone was home except Diego and Riley. Okay, I think I read that. The sun would rise at any moment. The door at the top of the basement stairs creaked as someone opened it. I sprang to my feet. Riley entered. He shut the door behind him. He walked down the stairs. No one followed. Before I could process this, Riley roared out an animalistic shriek of rage. He was staring down at the ashy remains on the floor, his eyes bulging in fury. Everyone stood silent, immobile. We'd all seen Riley lose his temper, but this was something different. Riley spun and raked his fingers through a blaring speaker, then ripped it from the wall and hurled it across the room. Jen and Christy dodged out of the way as it exploded into the far wall, sending up a cloud of pulverized drywall dust. Riley smashed the sound system with his foot. The thudding bass went silent. Then he leapt to where Raoul stood and grabbed him by the throat. "I wasn't even here!" Raoul yelled, looking afraid. "I'd never seen that before." Riley growled hideously and threw Raoul as he'd thrown the speaker. Jen and Christy jumped out of the way again. Poor girls. I mean, they could be guys, you never know. Raoul's body crashed right through the wall, leaving an enormous hole. Riley caught Kevin by the shoulder and, with a familiar screech, ripped off his right hand. Kevin cried out in pain and tried to twist out of Riley's grip. Riley kicked him in the side, another harsh shriek, and Riley had the rest of Kevin's arm. He tore the arm in half at the elbow and threw the pieces hard into Kevin's anguished face, smack, 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 like a hammer striking stone. "What is wrong with you?" Riley screamed at us. "Why are you all so stupid?" He made a grab for the blonde Spider-Man kid, but that kid leapt out of the way. His jump left him too close to Fred, and he stumbled back toward Riley again, gagging. "Do any of you have a brain?" Riley smacked a kid named Dean. "If there's someone named Sam, I'm going to have to alert the authorities." Into the entertainment center, shattering it, then caught another girl, Sarah, and tore her left ear and a handful of hair from her head. That's going to be a problem. She snarled in anguish. It became suddenly obvious that Riley was doing a very dangerous thing. There are a lot of us in here. Already Raoul was back, with Christy and Jen, usually his enemies, flanking him defensively. A few others banded together in clusters around the room. I wasn't sure if Riley was aware of the threat or if his rant came to an end naturally. He took a deep breath. He tossed Sarah her ear and the hair. She recoiled away from him, licking the torn edge of her ear, coating it with the venom so that it would reattach. There was no remedy for the hair, though. Sarah was going to have a bald spot. I feel like they could just... Never mind. I guess it would eat through the hair, wouldn't it? "Listen to me," Riley said, quiet but fierce. "All our lives depend on you listening to what I'm saying now and thinking. We are all going to die, every one of us, you and me, too, if you can't act like you have brains for just a few short days." This was nothing like his usual lectures and pleadings for control. He definitely had everyone's attention. "It's time for you to grow up and take responsibility for yourselves. Do you think you get to live like this for free? That all the blood in Seattle doesn't have a price?" The little clusters of vampires no longer seemed threatening. Everyone was wide-eyed, some exchanging mystified glances. I saw Fred's head turn toward me in my peripheral vision, but I didn't meet his gaze. My attention was focused on two things: Riley, just in case he started to attack again, and the door that was still closed. Oh, jeez. "Are you listening now? Really listening?" Riley paused, but no one nodded. The room was very still. "Let me explain to you the precarious situation we are all in. I'll try to keep it simple for the slowest ones. Raoul, Christy, come here." He motioned to the leaders of the two largest gangs, allied for this brief moment against him. Or do you say against? Against? Yeah. Anyway. Neither of them moved toward him. They braced themselves, Christy baring her teeth. I expected Riley to soften, to apologize, to placate them, and then persuade them to do what he wanted. But this was a different Riley. "Fine," he snapped. "We're going to need leaders if we're going to survive, but apparently neither of you is up to the task. I thought you had aptitude. I was wrong. Kevin, Jen, please join me as the heads of this team." Kevin looked up in surprise. He had just finished putting his arm back together, though his expression was wary. It was also unmistakably flattered. He slowly got to his feet. Jen looked at Christy as if waiting for permission. Raoul ground his teeth together. The door at the top of the stairs did not open. "Are you not able either?" Riley asked, irritated. Kevin took a step toward Riley, but then Raoul rushed him, leaping across the long room in two low bounds. He shoved Kevin against the wall without a word, and then stood by Riley's right shoulder. Riley permitted himself a tiny smile. The manipulation wasn't subtle, but it was effective. Yeah. Where was I? "Christy or Jen, who will lead us?" Riley asked, with a hint of amusement in his voice. Jen was still waiting for a sign from Christy as to what she should do. Christy glowered at Jen for an instant, then flipped her sandy hair out of her face and darted to stand on Riley's other side. That took too long to decide," Riley said seriously. "We don't have the luxury of time. We don't get to fool around anymore. I've let you all do pretty much whatever you feel like, but that ends tonight. For more reasons than one." He looked around the room, meeting everyone's eyes, making sure we were all listening. I held his gaze for only a second when it was my turn, and then my eyes flipped back to the floor. I corrected instantly, but his glare had moved on. I wondered if he'd noticed my slip, or if he had seen me at all, here beside Fred. "We have an enemy," Riley announced. He let that sink in for a moment. I could tell the idea was shocking to several of the vampires in the basement. The enemy was Raoul, or if you were with Raoul, the enemy was Christy. The enemy was right here, because the whole world was right here. The thought that there were other forces out there strong enough to affect us was new for most. Would have been new to me, too, yesterday. A few of you might be smart enough to have realized that if we exist, so do other vampires. Other vampires who are older, smarter, more talented. Other vampires who want our blood. Raoul hissed, and then several of his followers echoed him in support. That's right, Riley said, seeming intent on egging them on. Seattle was once theirs, but they moved on a long time ago. Now they know about us, and they are jealous of the easy blood they used to have here. They know it belongs to us now, but they want to take it back. They are coming after what they want. One by one, they'll hunt us down. We'll burn while they feast. Never, Christy growled. Some of hers and some of Raoul's growled too. We don't have a lot of choices, Riley told us. If we wait for them to show up here, they will have the advantage. This is their turf, after all, and they don't want to face us head-on because we outnumber them, and we are stronger than they are. They want to catch us separated. They want to take advantage of our biggest weakness. Are any of you smart enough to know what that is? He pointed at the ashes at his feet, now smeared into the carpet and unrecognizable as a former vampire, and waited. No one moved. Riley made a disgusted sound. Unity, he shouted. We don't have it. What kind of a threat can we pose when we won't stop killing each other? He kicked the dust, sending up a small black cloud. Can you imagine them laughing at us? They think taking the city from us will be easy, that we're weak with stupidity. They kind of are. That we'll just hand them our blood. Half of the vampires in the room snarled in protest now. Can you work together, or do we all die? We can take them, boss, Raoul growled. Riley scowled at him. Not if you can't control yourself, not if you can't cooperate with every single person in this room. Anyone you take out, his toe nudged the ashes again, might be the one who could have helped keep you alive. I feel like I messed up there. Every one of your coven that you kill is like handing our enemies a gift. Here, you're saying, take me down. Or wait, no, I think it would be more like, here, you're saying, take me down. There we go. Christy and Raoul exchanged a glance as if they were seeing each other for the first time. Others did the same. The word coven was not unfamiliar, but none of us had applied it to our group before. We were a coven. Okay, how come it's a coven of witches and a coven of vampires? I feel like there should be a separate word. Also, did you know that a group of crows is called a murder? And a group of ravens is apparently called an unkindness? But there's also another word that describes a group of ravens, but I can't remember what it is. I'd like to raise ravens one day. Let me tell you about our enemies, Riley said, and all eyes locked on his face. They are a much older coven than we are. They've been around for hundreds of years, and they've survived that long for a reason. They are crafty, and they are skilled, and they are coming to retake Seattle with confidence because they've heard the only ones they'll have to fight for it are a bunch of disorganized children who will do half their work for them. More growls, but some were less angry than they were wary. A few of the quieter vampires, the ones Riley would have called tamer, looked skittish. Riley noticed that, too. This is how they see us, but that's because they can't see us together. Together, we can crush them. If they could see all of us side by side fighting together, they would be terrified. And that's how they're going to see us, because we're not going to wait for them to show up here and start picking us off. We're going to ambush them in 4 days. 4 days? I guess our creator didn't want to cut it too close to the deadline. I looked at the closed door again. Where was Diego? Others reacted to the deadline with surprise, some with fear. It's the last thing they'll expect, Riley assured us. All of us together, waiting for them, and I've saved the best part for last. There are only 7 of them. There was an instant incredulous silence, then Raoul said, What? Christy stared at Riley with the same disbelieving expression, and I heard muttered whispers around the room. 7? Are you kidding me? Hey, Riley snapped. I wasn't joking when I said this coven is dangerous. They are wise and devious. Underhanded. We will have power on our side. They will have deception. If we play it their way, they will win. But if we take it to them on our terms, Riley didn't finish. He just smiled. It never works. Let's go now, Raoul urged. Let's get him out of the picture fast, Kevin growled enthusiastically. Slow down, moron. Rushing into things blind isn't going to help us win, Riley chided him. Tell us everything we need to know about them, Christy encouraged, shooting Raoul a superior look. Riley hesitated, as if deciding how to word something. All right, where to begin? I guess the first thing you need to know is that you don't know everything there is to know about vampires yet. I didn't want to overwhelm you in the beginning. Another pause while everyone looked confused. You have a little bit of experience with what we call talents. We have Fred. Everyone looked at Fred, or rather they tried to. I could tell from Riley's expression that Fred did not like being singled out. It looked like Fred had really turned up the volume on his talent, as Riley called it. Riley cringed and looked away quickly. I still didn't feel anything. Yes, well, there are some vampires who have gifts beyond the usual super strength and super senses and speed. I always forget the speed. You've seen one aspect in our coven. He was careful not to say Fred's name again. Gifts are rare, 1 in 50 maybe. But everyone is different. There's a huge range of gifts out there, and some of them are more powerful than others. I could hear a lot of murmurs. Now, as people wondered if they might be talented, Raoul was preening like he had already decided he was gifted. As far as I could tell, the only one around here was that was in any way special was standing next to me. Pay attention, Riley commanded. I'm not telling you this for entertainment. This enemy coven, Christy interjected. They're talented, right? Riley gave her an approving nod. I like her. She's smart. I wonder when she dies. Riley gave her an approving nod. Exactly. I'm glad someone here can connect the dots. Raoul's upper lip twitched back over his teeth. This coven is dangerously talented, Riley went on, his voice dropping to a hushed whisper. They have a mind reader. He examined our faces, looking to see if we got the importance of this revelation. He didn't seem satisfied with his assessment. Think, guys. He'll know everything in your head. If you attack, he'll know what move you're going to make before you know it. You go left, he'll be waiting. There was a nervous stillness as everyone imagined this. This is why we've been so careful, me and the one who created you. Christy flinched away from Riley when he mentioned her. Raoul looked angry, or nerves strained universally. You don't know her name, and you don't know what she looks like. This protects us all. If they stumbled across one of you alone, they wouldn't realize that you were connected to her, and they might have let you be. If they knew you were part of her coven, there would be no delay in your execution. That didn't make sense to me. Didn't the secrecy protect her more than it protected any of us? Riley hurried on before we had too long to examine his statement. I mean, yeah, that's true, but what he said is also true. Of course, I guess we have the benefit of looking into the story rather than being a part of it. Of course, it doesn't matter now they've decided to move on Seattle. What? We will surprise them on their way in, and we will annihilate them. He whistled a single low note through his teeth. I don't whistle. I think it's more I can't whistle than anything else. Done. And then, not only is the city all ours, other covens will know not to mess with us. We won't have to be so careful to cover our tracks anymore. As much blood as you want for everyone. Hunting every night. We'll move right into the city, and we will rule it. Oh, gotcha. The growls and snarls were like applause. Everyone was with him, except for me. I didn't move, didn't make a sound. Neither did Fred, but who knows why that was. Seriously, I like Fred. I want him to live. I mean, I know that they all... Never mind. I was not with Riley because his promises sounded like lies, or else my whole line of logic had been wrong. Riley said it was only these enemies that kept us from hunting without caution or restraint. But that didn't go along with the fact that all the other vampires must have been discreet, or humans would have known about them long ago. I couldn't concentrate to work it out because the door at the top of the stairs had not moved. Diego. Yeah, I'm pretty sure he's dead. We have to do this together, though. Today I'm going to lead you through some techniques, fighting techniques. There's more to this than just scuffling around on the floor like toddlers. When it gets dark, we'll go outside and practice. I want you to practice hard, but keep your focus. I am not losing another member of this coven. We all need each other, every one of us. I will not tolerate any more stupidity. If you think you don't have to listen to me, you are wrong. He paused for a short second, the muscles in his face shifting into a new arrangement. And you will learn how wrong you are when I take you to her. I shuddered and felt the tremor through the room as everyone else did too. and hold you while she tears off your legs and slowly burns off your fingers, ears, lips, tongue, and every other superfluous appendage one by one. At least if you're human, you would go into shock eventually. We'd all lost a limb, at least, and we'd all burned when we became vampires, so we could easily imagine how that would feel, but it wasn't the threat itself that was so terrifying. The truly scary thing was Riley's face as he said it. His face was not twisted in rage the way it usually was when he was angry. It was calm and cold, smooth and beautiful, his mouth curled at the edges into a small smile. I suddenly had the impression that this was a new Riley. Something had changed him, hardened him. But I couldn't imagine what could have happened in the one night to create that cruel, perfect smile. I looked away, shivering a little, and saw as Raoul's smile shifted to echo Riley's, I could almost see the gears turning in Raoul's head. He wouldn't kill his victim so quickly in the future. Huh. Now let's get some teams figured out so we can work in groups, Riley said, his face normal again. Christy, Raoul, get your kids together and then divvy up the rest evenly. No fighting. I feel like I'm trying to do an impression of Darth Vader. If he sounded like Vader, but was younger. Anyway. Show me you can do this rationally. Prove yourselves. He walked away from those two, ignoring the fact that they fell almost immediately into bickering and made an arc around the outside edge of the room. He touched a few vampires on the shoulder as he passed, nudging them toward one of the new leaders or the other. I didn't realize at first that he was heading in my direction because he took such a wide way around. There we go. I think we'll end the chapter soon. Bree, he said, squinting toward where I stood. It looked like this took some effort. I felt like a block of ice. He must have smelled my trail. I was dead. Bree, he said, softer now. His voice reminded me of the first time he talked to me, when he was nice to me, and then even lower. I promised Diego I'd give you a message. He said to tell you it was a ninja thing. Does that make sense to you? He still couldn't look at me, but he was edging closer. Diego, I murmured. I'll let this one go. I couldn't help myself. Riley smiled a tiny bit. Can we talk? He jerked his head toward the door. I double-checked all the windows. The first floor is totally dark and safe. I knew I wouldn't be as safe once I walked away from Fred, but I had to hear what Diego wanted to tell me, what had happened. I should have stayed with him to meet Riley. I followed Riley through the room, keeping my head down. He gave Raoul a few instructions, nodded to Christy, and then went up the stairs. From the corners of my eyes, I saw a few people curiously watch the direction he was going. Riley passed through the door first, and then the kitchen of the home was, as he promised, totally black. He motioned for me to keep following and led me through a dark hall past a few open bedroom doors. Then through another door with a deadbolt, we ended up in the garage. You're brave, he commented in a very low voice, or really trusting. I thought it would be more work to get you upstairs with the sun up. Whoops. I should have been more skittish. Too late now, I shrugged. So, you and Diego are pretty tight, right? He asked, just breathing the words. Probably if everyone were silent in the room, or in the basement, they would still be able to hear him, but it was pretty noisy down there. Sorry. I shrugged again. He saved my life, I whispered. Riley lifted his chin, almost but not quite a nod, and appraised. Did he believe me? Did he think I still feared the day? He's the best, Riley said. The smartest kid I've got. I nodded once. That sounds like he's still alive, but I don't believe it. I nodded once. We had a little meeting about the situation. We agreed that we need some surveillance. Going in blind is too dangerous. He's the only one I trust to scout ahead. He exhaled, almost angrily. Wish I had two of him. Raoul's got too short a fuse, and Christie's too self-absorbed to get the big picture. But they're the best I've got, and I have to make do. Diego said you were smart, too. I waited, not sure how much of our story Riley knew. I need your help with Fred. Wow, that kid is strong. I couldn't even look at him tonight. I nodded cautiously again. Imagine if our enemies can't even look at us. It would be so easy. I didn't think Fred would like that idea, but maybe I was wrong. He didn't seem like he cared anything for this coven of ours. Would he want to save us? I didn't respond to Riley. You spend a lot of time with him. I shrugged. Nobody bothers me there. It's not easy. Riley pursed his lips and nodded smart, like Diego said. Where is Diego? I shouldn't have asked. The worst just ripped out of their own accord. I waited anxiously, trying to look indifferent and most likely failing. We don't have time to waste. I sent him south the second I found out what was coming. If our enemies decide to attack early, we need advance warning. Diego will meet with us when we move against them. I tried to imagine where Diego was now. I wished I were with them. Maybe I could talk him out of doing Riley's bidding and putting himself in the line of fire in the process, but maybe not. It seemed like Diego was thick with Riley, just like I'd worried. Diego wanted me to tell you something. My eyes snapped to his face, too fast, too eager, blew it again. Sounded like nonsense to me, he said. Tell Bree I've got the handshake figured out. I'll show her in 4 days when we meet up. I have no idea what that means, do you? I tried to force a poker face. Maybe. He did say something about needing a secret handshake for his underwater cave, some kind of password. He was just kidding around, though. I'm not sure what he means now. Riley chuckled. Poor Diego. What? I think that kid likes you a lot more than you like him. Oh. I looked away, confused. Was Diego giving me this message as a way to let me know I could trust Riley? But he hadn't told Riley I knew about the sun. Still, he must have trusted Riley to tell him so much, to show Riley that he cared about me. I feel like this book should have come out before Eclipse. Where was I? Gosh darn it. I thought it would be wiser to keep my mouth shut, though. Too much had changed. Don't write him off yet, Bree. He's the best. Like I said, give him a chance. Riley was giving me romantic advice? This could not get weirder. I bobbed my head once and muttered, Sure. See if you can talk to Fred. Make sure he's on board. I shrugged. I'll do what I can. Riley smiled. Great. I'll put you aside before we leave, and you can tell me how it went. Pull you aside. There we go. I'll keep it casual, not like tonight. I don't want him to feel like I'm spying on him. Okay. Riley motioned for me to follow and then headed back to the basement. The training lasted all day, but I wasn't a part of it. After Riley went back to his team leaders, I took my spot beside Fred. The others had been divided up into 4 groups of 4, with Raoul and Christy directing them. No one had picked Fred for a side, or maybe he'd ignored them, or maybe they couldn't even see that he was there. I could still see him. He stood out, the only one not participating, a big blonde elephant in the room. I get that a lot, only I'm not blonde. And never mind. I had no desire to insinuate myself into either Raoul's team or Christie's, so I just watched. No one seemed to notice that I was sitting out with Fred. Though we must have been somewhat invisible thanks to talented Fred, I felt horribly obvious. I wished I were invisible to myself, that I could see the illusion so that I could trust it. But no one noticed us, and after a while I could almost relax. Okay. I think that's a pretty good spot. I'm really hoping Diego is actually alive. Riley, for a young vampire, relatively speaking, I think for at least right now we can somewhat trust him. I just don't think that even if Riley let Diego live, I don't think he's alive. I feel like, oh, what do you think of my Batman shirt? I feel like, what's her face, Victoria, who hasn't been named, although with good reason, wouldn't let him live. Also, I just noticed that Bill Nye is staring at me. His book is over here on the shelf and it fell over and it's looking right at me. Anyway, let me know what you guys think. I have an idea of what I'd like to do to change the ending. However, I don't know if I should type it out or write it out on a piece of paper. Well, more than just the one piece of paper. I might just type it and read from my computer like I would read from a normal book. If you guys want to help me, you know, give me some ideas, help me get into the mindset of the characters, the writing style, I suppose. This would be a great help to me, not only because I'd be interacting with you, the audience, more, but also because I'm trying to be a writer. I'd like to be. Miga and I are working on our own series. So this would be a very interesting writing exercise. Writing in the confines of somebody else's work might help me write in what we're trying to do in such a way where, okay, if I can only do so much here with this, imagine what I could do if I have all the freedom in the world to do what I want with my story. I think it might help out a lot. Anyway, it's over 40 minutes, so sorry about that. Let me know what you guys think if you want to help out. If you don't, if you want me to read the ending how it is normal, and then afterwards write out my personal ending afterwards, or if you want me to just completely forego the ending and try and write up my own afterwards. We'll have a little poll, I suppose. Anyway, until next time, goodbye everybody.